Welcome, traveler, to Boring History for Sleep, a quiet corner of the world where we leave behind the noise of today and gently wander into the stillness of the past. Here, the fires of history burn low and steady, casting long shadows over forgotten stories. We are not here for kings and conquests, but for the quiet, strange, and sometimes unsettling moments that time nearly buried. Tonight's journey will carry us through the silent sands of ancient Egypt, a land where time stands still beneath the weight of eternity. You find yourself waking up not in the comfort of your own bed, but on a coarse straw mat inside a small mud-brick dwelling. The air is warm and dry, thick with the earthy scent of sun-baked clay and burning dung. Outside, the first golden rays of the sun begin to paint the desert in hues of bronze and red, as the sounds of braying donkeys and clucking chickens stir the neighborhood into life. There is no electricity, no running water, no comforting hum of modernity, only the eternal rhythm of the Nile and the will of the gods. You've landed in the bustling city of what modern historians would later call Thebes around the year 1250 BCE. During the mighty reign of Pharaoh Ramesses II, this is a world held together by divine order and human labor, where every sunrise brings both opportunity and hardship. The people here live not for comfort, but for duty to their family, to their gods, and to their king. Your body aches from sleeping on a hard surface. Your mouth is dry, don't know it yet, but your first and only day in ancient Egypt has already begun, and the odds are stacked against you. You might think that surviving in a civilization as rich and advanced as ancient Egypt would be manageable, even exciting. After all, this is the cradle of monumental architecture, of papyrus scrolls and intricate tombs, of deities with falcon heads and god-kings who rule in perpetuity. But beneath the surface of all that grandeur lies a harsher truth. The daily life of most Egyptians was grueling, dangerous, and short. The pyramids were built on broken backs, not magic. The temples were raised by calloused hands under the merciless sun. Medicine relied as much on prayers as on leeches. Clean water was a blessing, not a guarantee. And the line between divine favor and disaster was always razor-thin. You, a stranger to this land and its customs, will soon discover that you don't belong here. You don't speak the language. You don't know the rules, sacred or social. You can't navigate the winding markets or the complex rituals. You can't even dress properly. In a place where even slight offenses could invite curses or punishments, your ignorance is dangerous. Everything from the food you eat to the way you walk or greet someone could bring trouble, so settle in, but not too comfortably. This is not a sightseeing tour or a museum exhibit. This is the living, breathing, grinding world of ancient Egypt, and it does not care whether you're ready for it. The first thing you notice isn't the light, it's the sound. Before the sun even peaks above the eastern horizon, a low murmur has already begun to ripple through the dusty alleyways of the city. It is not the restful quiet of pre-dawn modernity, where cars are still and birds chirp softly from distant trees. No, this is an entirely different awakening. It is the slow, throaty call of a rooster echoing across the rooftops, immediately answered by the clatter of clay jars and the snort of a tethered ox shaking off its dreams. Somewhere nearby, a woman calls out in a language you cannot understand, her voice sharp with frustration. A baby cries. Another rooster joins in. And above it all, there is the constant undercurrent of movement, feet slapping against dry earth, wooden sandals striking the ground like slow, dull drums. You awaken not to an alarm clock, but to the chaos of life in a city that never truly sleeps. You are lying on a mat made of tightly woven reeds, its texture coarse against your skin. The mat rests on packed earth, and your entire body aches with the deep discomfort of having slept in one position for too long. Your back is stiff, your mouth is dry. You reach instinctively for water, but the clay jug beside you contains only the dregs of yesterday's supply, warm, slightly sour and gritty with fine dust. You drink anyway. There is no plumbing here, no tap to twist for a fresh stream, no sink for washing up. Water is drawn from the Nile or a communal well, stored in heavy amphorae that must be carried by hand, and shared among the household for cooking, cleaning, and drinking. You are a guest in this home, but there is no hospitality in the modern sense. Every drop of water is precious. Every loaf of bread, every sliver of salted fish, every clay bowl of lentils has been earned through toil. The room around you is barely a room at all. The walls are thick with the scent of clay and smoke. Built from sun-dried mud bricks, they offer shelter from the cold of night but little privacy. There are no windows, only a narrow slit cut high into one wall to let the light in once the sun rises. Furniture is non-existent. You share the room with others, at least 6 people in this small square space, all stirring as the city stretches itself awake. A woman, perhaps the matron of the house, sits up on her own mat and begins combing her long black hair with her fingers. She mutters something to a young boy who yawns, rubs his eyes, and reaches for a bundle of cloth that serves as his clothing. The boy is no older than 8, but already his face bears the hardness of labor. He ties his tunic and slips outside without a word. It's his job to fetch water today. There's no time for breakfast. No moment spared for lingering. Oh, the work begins immediately, as it does every day. You rise slowly, wincing as your joints protest. You slept in your tunic, and now it clings to your damp skin. Air is already thick, heavy with the promise of heat. The low roof traps it, turning the room into an oven even before the sun appears. There is a smell here that you are still getting used to something between sweat, dust, smoke, and dung. Not just one source. The odor seeps from the very walls, from the fire pit in the corner, from the clothes, the people, the pots of fermenting grains and vegetables. You breathe it in and try not to gag. This is not a passing stench. It is the smell of life, constant and unchanging. Stepping outside, you find yourself in a narrow alleyway between tall, uneven mud brick houses. The path is only wide enough for 2 people to pass side by side, and even then you must step carefully. The ground is littered with scrap pieces of cloth, broken shards of pottery, and animal droppings that no one bothers to clean. A thin layer of dust coats everything, kicked up by the sandals of early risers hurrying past. You can hear the faint slap of laundry being beaten against stone, and further away, the steady creak of a wooden press, squeezing oil from crushed seeds. The city is fully alive now, though the sun still hides behind the eastern horizon. The sky is a bruised purple, fading into pale yellow. A woman passes by, balancing a tall clay jar on her head, her gait steady and practiced. She doesn't look at you. Few people do. You are clearly out of place. Your posture, your expression, your hesitation all mark you as unfamiliar. In this land of divine order and deeply rooted custom, being a stranger is not a minor inconvenience. It is dangerous. You don't speak the language. You don't know the rituals. You don't know which streets are safe, which temples are off limits, or what hand gesture means respect. Every action is a gamble, and every mistake could draw the wrong attention. As you walk slowly toward the market square, your feet slip on a pile of crushed dates, swarming with flies. You catch yourself before falling, heart racing. No one stops to help. A man hauling firewood bumps your shoulder, mutters something under his breath, and keeps going. There is no time for pity here. Everyone is too busy surviving. The city of Wasat is one of the largest in Egypt, a center of trade, religion, and governance. But it is not a city built for comfort. Its beauty lies in its purpose, its structure, its place in the divine order. But that order comes at a price. You pass a line of laborers already gathering near a building site. They stand in groups of 5 or 10, waiting for the overseer to appear. Their heads are shaved, their tunics damp with sweat despite the early hour. Most of them carry ropes, chisels, or picks made from copper or stone. Some are barefoot. A few cough violently, their lungs choked with the fine dust of limestone quarries. When the overseer arrives, he does not speak. He raises a short wooden stick and begins pointing. One by one, the workers are selected. Some follow willingly, others hang back, reluctant. A second man, larger and angrier, steps in and cracks a whip. Hesitation is not tolerated. We watch as the group is herded away toward the construction site, where another temple or tomb is slowly rising from the earth. You think of joining them, of blending in, but your soft hands and unfamiliar face would betray you instantly. You are not ready for that work, not yet. A nearby baker's stall is already open, its clay oven glowing faintly. The scent of fresh bread reaches you, and for a moment, your stomach lurches with hunger. But the bread here is not like what you know. Made from emmer wheat and ground by hand using stone querns. It is dense, flat, and often filled with grit from the grinding stones. Eating it over time wears your teeth down to the roots. Many Egyptians suffer from constant dental pain, abscesses, and infections. You see a woman chewing slowly, grimacing slightly with each bite. She swallows and moves on, brushing crumbs from her face. Food is fuel here, not pleasure. A child passes you carrying a small clay pot, and you catch a glimpse of its contents thick, yellowish beer. Not a cold, bubbly drink, but a sour, grainy mash with a low alcohol content, made from partially baked bread fermented in water. It's safer than the river water, but not by much. Most people drink it because there are no alternatives. I wonder if you could get used to it if your stomach could adapt. But even as you watch, the child trips and spills some of the mixture onto the ground. A nearby dog begins licking it up before being chased away by a barefoot woman wielding a broom made from bundled reeds. By now, the sun has begun to rise. It peeks over the eastern rooftops, sending shafts of golden light slanting into the alleys. But there is no relief in its warmth. Already, the air grows thicker, hotter. You begin to sweat, and there is no breeze. The linen tunic you wear, while light offers no protection from the heat. It clings to your skin, trapping the moisture. Your scalp burns beneath your hair, and your hands feel sticky with dust and oil. You wish for shade, but the alley is too narrow, the buildings too close together. You keep walking, heart pounding, trying to find a place to rest. You pass a temple, its stone walls smooth and cool in the morning light. Priests in white robes glide silently through its courtyard, their heads shaven, their movements precise. They carry incense burners and bowls of milk, preparing offerings for the gods. You dare not enter. Only the pure may approach the sacred. Even touching the outer wall could be seen as an offense. A guard stands nearby, spear in hand, watching everyone with narrowed eyes. You lower your gaze and move quickly past. Further down, you hear shouting. Man drags a younger boy by the arm, striking him with the flat of his hand. The boy wails, but no one intervenes. Discipline is expected. Respect is demanded. Children must learn their place early. You feel a pang of helplessness, but no better than to interfere. Here, justice is swift and public. A stranger defending a child might be seen as disrespectful. Worse, seditious. The sun is fully up now, and the market square is crowded. Sellers shout over one another, waving dried fish, onions, and copper trinkets at passersby. Lies cloud around stalls of raw meat, their buzzing incessant. A goat urinates in the middle of the road, ignored by all. You press forward, dizzy from heat and hunger, your body not yet adjusted to this world. Every step feels heavier. Your breath comes shorter. There is no breakfast waiting for you, no clean place to sit, no one offering help. You find a shaded corner and collapse against a wall, heart pounding. Your head aches. Your mouth is dry again. You close your eyes and try to breathe slowly, but the stench of the city fills your nostrils. Smoke, dung, rot, and sweat. Around you, life continues. Children run barefoot through the dust. Women haggle over lentils. Funeral procession passes in the distance. Mourners wailing in practiced grief. The day has only just begun, and already you are struggling to survive. You've made it through the first hour of daylight in ancient Egypt, though you feel like you've already endured an entire day. Your limbs ache from unfamiliar work. Your skin is sticky with sweat and dust, and your senses are overloaded by the smells, sounds, and chaos of life around you. But more than anything else, it's the gnawing in your stomach that demands your attention. Hunger is not a passing discomfort. Here it's a constant, low thrum beneath everything. You haven tea eaten, since the stale bit of lentil mash you nibbled on last night before curling up on the mat in your body, softened by modern abundance, is already beginning to falter. You need anything to eat. And here, breakfast is not a leisurely meal prepared in a clean kitchen with toast and butter or cereal and fruit. It is whatever is left from yesterday, scraped from clay pots, or scavenged from storage baskets that haven't been raided by mice, insects, or spoiled by the relentless heat. In the home you're staying in, the morning ritual is already in motion. The mother, a wiry woman with sinewy arms and a long braid down her back, squats near a small hearth set into the earthen floor. The fire she is stoking is made not from firewood, there is little of that in this part of Egypt, but from dried cow dung mixed with straw. A resource gathered daily from the alleyways and animal pens. The smoke that curls from it is thick and acrid, and it burns your eyes even from across the room. She coughs, waves her hand, and keeps working. Balanced on the low flame is a wide, flat ceramic griddle, heating slowly.
Next to it.
She kneads a coarse, grayish lump of dough. This is breadif, you can call it, that made from emar, wheat, and barley, coarsely ground by hand on stone querns that leave the flour filled with bits of grit and stone dust. You'd thought nothing of your teeth before today, but one glance at the smile of the man beside you, revealing blackened gums and worn-down molars, tells you that dental pain is simply a part of life here. The bread, once baked, is dense, hard, and unevenly cooked. It doesn't rise like modern loaves, shaped more like a flat stone or thick puck, often nicknamed toothbreakers by scholars for good reason. You accept a piece as it's handed to you, hot and steaming, but without any pleasant aroma. It smells of ash, sweat, and the faint sourness of over-fermented grain. You take a cautious bite and feel the grainy texture scrape across your tongue. It crumbles, not in a soft, flaky way, but like packed sand. You chew slowly, eyes watering as the grit presses into your gums. It's dry, desperately dry. You look for something to wash it down with. There is no milk. There's no fresh water. Instead, a gourd bowl filled with a thick, yellowish liquid is pushed towards you. It's beer, but not beer as you know it. Ancient Egyptian beer is made from fermented bread, soaked and left to fester, strained only loosely, often filled with chunks of mushy grain and floating bits of chaff. It is warm, sour, and smells faintly of vinegar. Still, it is safer than the water drawn from the river or communal troughs. And so you drink. The liquid hits your tongue with a shock of acidity, and you gag, but force it down. Hydration matters. You must drink, or you'll collapse before the sun reaches its highest point. Around you, the family eats in silence. There are no tables, no chairs, no plates. Everyone squats or sits cross-legged, passing bits of bread, onions, or leftover stew from shared clay bowls. Fingers are the only utensils. Double dipping is common, and hygiene is a distant concept. You try not to think of the flies, the dust, or the open latrine pit just outside the doorway. What looks like a small basket of fruit turns out to be a collection of shriveled dates and hard figs. Their skins cracked, and their interiors sticky with fermenting sugar. A child hands you one, and you thank him with a nod. The fruit is the first thing that tastes remotely pleasant, sweet, chewy, and packed with energy. But it is small, and there are only a few. No one hoards. But no one is generous either. Every calorie is counted, whether spoken aloud or not. In wealthier homes, a morning meal might include honey, salted fish, or fresh goat milk. But those are luxuries. In this household, as in most, breakfast is a matter of necessity, not enjoyment. The bread is meant to sustain you, not delight you. The beer dulls the hunger, numbs the thirst, and keeps your body moving. You understand now how these people survive on such fare not because they choose to, but because their bodies have been shaped by it, hardened by routine and scarcity. You, however, are not shaped for this life. Already your stomach churns with the unfamiliar mix of sour beer and gritty bread. You feel a dull ache begin to bloom beneath your ribs, and you suspect that your body may reject this offering sooner rather than later. But there is no time to complain. Breakfast is over quickly. The bread is gone. The bowls are licked clean by children. The mother stands, wiping her hands on her tunic, and begins to gather the coals to start boiling a pot of lentils for the noon meal. There are no long breakfasts, no conversations over coffee, no time to linger and plan, so the meal is functional. Fuel, then gone. You're told to take your empty bowl to the river. You obey. The walk is not far, but the morning sun has grown stronger. The dust from the streets now clings to your face like a second skin. As you approach the water's edge, the realities of ancient Egyptian sanitation become painfully clear. The Nile is beautiful from a distance wide, calm glinting beneath the rising sun. But up close, it is a crowded, chaotic stretch of shared necessity. Women scrub laundry against rocks, their arms brown and muscular from repetition. Children splash in the shallows, shouting and laughing, stirring up silt and mud. A man relieves himself into a ditch that leads into the water. Nearby, a scribe rinses his ink-stained hands in the same current. You're horrified, but no one else bats an eye. This is normal. This is life. You bend, scoop water with your bowl, and splash it onto your face. The coolness is a relief, but your skin now carries the scent of river grime and soap root. The soap they use is made from crushed seeds and ash, and it leaves behind a greasy, pungent residue. You wash quickly, not because you're in a hurry, but because the flies are already descending. The air is thick with them, swarming around every exposed surface, buzzing in your ears, landing on your lips and fingers. You swat them away uselessly. The locals do not even bother. On the way back, your stomach turns. The bread, the beer, the river water, it's a cruel mix. You duck behind a wall, hoping for privacy, and relieve yourself. There is no toilet paper, just your hand and a handful of coarse sand. You grimace, ashamed and uncomfortable. Welcome to breakfast in ancient Egypt. When you return to the house, work has already resumed. The youngest daughter is sweeping the floor with a bundle of palm fronds. The oldest son is repairing a cracked jar using heated resin and linen strips. You, meanwhile, are asked to help grind more grain. You sit beside the young girl at the stone quern, watching her as she pours a handful of emmer onto the flat grinding stone and begins the long, slow process of crushing it with another. Her motion is practiced, relentless. The sound is rhythmic. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Dust rises with every movement, filling your nose, coating your hands. After a few minutes, your shoulders ache from leaning over. The girl glances at you with something like pity. You are soft. You are slow. You are not made for this. By the time you've helped grind a bowl full of flour, your hands are blistered. The heat has risen. Your tunic is soaked. And breakfast, meager as it was, feels like a distant memory. You look to the sky, squinting against the brightness. The sun has barely reached its zenith. Morning is not even over, and already you are broken. You remember that phrase you'd read once, long ago? Man does not live by bread alone. And yet here, in the land of Egypt, bread is everything. It is sustenance. It is wages. It is offering. It is survival. And for you, it is a trial, one you are failing. The sun has finally emerged in full, climbing its unrelenting way toward the center of the sky. The light is no longer gentle or golden, it is blinding, sharp, and absolute, pouring down over the mud brick buildings and baking the ground beneath your feet until it radiates heat like a kill. There is no escaping it. The narrow alleys offer only teasing slivers of shadow, quickly swallowed up as the morning matures. Your linen tunic, once loose and fluttering, now clings to your body with the weight of sweat. There is no relief. There is no pause. You're expected to begin your labor, and if you hesitate, someone will notice and someone will act. In ancient Egypt, work is not optional. It is not just a way to make a living. It is a divine duty, part of the great cosmic order that keeps society, the gods, and the universe itself from falling into chaos. The concept of mat balance, truth, harmony demands it. Every man and woman has a role to play, and failure to play it is a threat to more than just your personal survival. It is an affront to the gods themselves. You've been assigned a task by the family that is hosting or rather tolerating you. Go to the riverfront and help the labor gang prepare. Limestone blocks for transportation. It sounds simple enough. Imagine pushing a few stones, maybe lifting a bit of rope, pretending to be useful. But this is not a favor. This is your duty now. You leave the house with a sun-bleached head covering to protect you from the brutal heat. A half-empty water jar tied at your hip, and not a single idea of what to expect. The path to the river is already crowded. Men, women, and children walk with purpose, each one headed to their assigned stations like ants in an endless colony. Farmers head to the irrigation ditches, carrying wooden hoes and baskets filled with seed. Fishermen stride toward boats with nets slung over their shoulders. Bakers, potters, tanners, and scribes all vanish into the swirling dust of the streets. Everyone is working. Everyone has a place. You do not, so that makes you dangerous. At the riverbank, a group of about 20 men is already gathered. Most are lean and sun-darkened, with powerful shoulders and calloused hands. A few are missing teeth. One man has a limp. Another bears the scars of a whip down his back, faded but unmistakable. These are not slaves, not exactly. But they are not free in the way you understand freedom. They are bound by duty, debt, and survival. When the foreman arrives, a short, wiry man with a polished stick and a voice like flint, everyone snaps to attention. No one speaks, no one complains. He points to the blocks, each one the size of a coffin and twice as heavy, lined up like silent beasts along the water's edge. You are told to help prepare them for transport upriver. The blocks are to be hauled onto wooden sledges, then dragged up a ramp and onto barges. The ramp is coated in thick, slippery mud to reduce friction, a technique, both ingenious and treacherous. The foreman barks orders in rapid succession. You don't understand the words, but the gestures are clear enough. Rope, lift, drag. He hands you a length of woven flax rope and motions for you to join a team of 4 others. The rope is rough, fibrous, and immediately cuts into your palms. Your first attempt to pull feels almost theatrical. You lean back, dig in your heels, and heave. Nothing happens. The block doesn't budge. One of the men grunts, reaches over, and adjusts your grip without ceremony. You try again, this time moving in unison with the others. The block shifts a fraction of an inch. Dust puffs up around your feet. Your thighs tremble. Your shoulders burn. You are already drenched in sweat. The others work silently, rhythmically, their breath coming in deep huffs through flared nostrils. You've done this hundreds of times. You have done it once, and already you feel like dying. The process repeats endlessly. Drag, reset, drag again. When the blocks are finally loaded onto the barge, the next team begins lashing them down with wet ropes that shrink as they dry, securing the cargo tightly to the deck. Then the loading ramp must be re-slathered with mud, hauled in heavy buckets from the edge of the Nile. This, too, falls to you. You descend the embankment, fill a clay jar with river muck, and carry it back up the slippery slope, slipping more than once. The foreman glares at your clumsiness, but says nothing. He doesn't need to. His stick says it all. You've seen him use it on other swift, sharp strikes across the back of the legs or shoulders. Not enough to injure permanently, but more than enough to humiliate. You live in fear of that stick. It follows you, even when your back is turned. Around mid-morning, you are granted a short break. Not out of mercy, but necessity. Even the most hardened laborer cannot endure the full heat of the Egyptian sun without pause. You slump against a large stone, gasping, arms trembling, eyes stinging with sweat. Someone passes you a fig. You nod gratefully, bite into it, and savor the momentary sweetness. Another worker hands you his water jar. You sip carefully, rationing each drop. There is no banter, no camaraderie, only shared exhaustion. As the break ends, a new task awaits. As one of the barges is returned from the opposite shore, empty but in need of maintenance. The oarlocks are damaged, and someone must reattach the steering oars, using strips of boiled leather and copper pegs. You are drafted into this job, despite your ignorance. One of the boatmen shows you how to hold the pegs steady while he hammers them in with a smooth stone. The work is precise and slow, but it gives your back a reprieve from lifting. You try to concentrate to prove your usefulness. Sweat pours down your arms and stings your eyes. Your fingers slip on the pegs. The hammer misses and strikes your thumb. You yelp, more from shock than pain. The boatman says nothing, just hands you another peg. You return to work. The injury throbs, but you dare not complain. Blood trickles down your hand and vanishes into the murky water. By noon, the heat is almost unbearable. The sun is directly overhead and the shadows have disappeared. The ground feels molten beneath your feet. Your tunic is soaked, your lips cracked, your throat raw. You've lost track of time. Your limbs move on instinct now, heavy and slow like clay. Somewhere in the distance, a drum beats the signal that the priests at the temple are performing the midday sacrifice. You cannot see it. You cannot attend. Only the pure may enter the temple gates, and you with your filth and sweat and unspoken foreignness are as far from purity as one can be. You hear the faint chanting of prayers, the bleating of a goat, and then silence. The moment passes. The work continues. Always the work continues. In the afternoon, the foreman announces that the team must assist in quarrying a new block from a nearby outcrop. You had hoped the day was winding down. It is not. The quarry is dry, dusty, and blisteringly hot. There is no shade here, only walls of white stone that reflect the sun's rays like mirrors. The tools are primitive copper chisels, wooden mallets, wedges of dry wood soaked in water to split the stone. You are handed a mallet and pointed toward a seam in the rock. You swing again and again, your arms numb with effort, your vision swimming. Chips of limestone fly into the air, coating your face and clothes with a fine, chalky dust. Your throat begins to close, and you cough violently, spitting up phlegm laced with grit. A nearby worker watches you with mild amusement. He has long since lost the ability to cough. His lungs, like his teeth, have adapted or failed entirely. By the time the block is finally loosened from the rock face, the sun is beginning to dip toward the western horizon. The sky takes on a reddish hue and the air grows thicker, heavier. You are told to wash yourself before returning to the city, not for comfort, but for ritual cleanliness. You stumble to the river's edge and wade in waist deep. The water is cool, and for a moment you feel relief. Then you notice the leeches, the algae, the filth. You scrub yourself with handfuls of sand, trying to remove the layers of sweat and dust from your skin. It doesn't work. Nothing could. You are a creature of labor now. Dirt is your second skin. Back on the bank, the foreman calls for roll. Each man stands in line, is counted, and dismissed. You are not counted. You are not paid. You are a stranger, a ghost. The others walk off toward their homes, their families, their evening routines. You sit alone on a stone near the river, too tired to move, too numb to think. Your hands are blistered, your feet are raw, your muscles twitch involuntarily, the air hums with insects. Somewhere nearby, a crocodile slides silently into the water. You don't care? This you now understand is daily life for the vast majority of ancient Egyptians. Work is not a phase of the day, it is the day. It defines who you are, what you eat, where you live, and whether you survive. There are no weekends, no sick days, no breaks for self-discovery. There is only work or death. Sometimes both. And as you drag yourself back toward the mud brick house that waits for you with its smoke, its cries, and its stale bread, you realize you wouldn't last a week in this world. Maybe not even another day. The sun does not merely shine in Egypt. It devours. It burns not only the skin, but the soul. If you thought the worst had passed by midday, you were wrong. By mid-afternoon, the very air becomes thick and cruel buzzing with the high whine of flies. Choked with dust rising from 1,000 sandals grinding it into the dry earth. There is no gentle breeze, no forgiving clouds, no rustling shade. The Nile may nourish the land, but the sun rules it, and it does so with brutal, unrelenting authority. You might imagine that the people here who've lived under this tyranny for generations would have grown used to it, that their bodies have made peace with the heat, that their homes have adapted, that they have tricks to outwit the weather. But that is only half true. The ancient Egyptians didn't outwit the sun, they surrendered to it. They built their lives around its dominance and structured their existence to obey its terrible rhythm. You are still coated in sweat and river mud, and your body feels like a half-fired clay pot, cracked, salty, and stiff. The clothes you wore this morning are now stiff with dust and dried perspiration. Your lips sting when you press them together. Your throat is a hot, dry tunnel. But there's no choice. You resummon back to the house before dusk to take part in evening rituals, not of celebration or rest, but of survival. In ancient Egypt, dusk is a warning. Prepare now, or suffer tonight. Inside the mud brick home, the heat is different, but no less punishing. The thick earthen walls hold in the day's warmth, like a clay oven. There are no chimneys, no real ventilation, just small high-set windows that allow a bit of air in along with clouds of insects. The roof offers some relief, but even that is relative. Some family members sleep there, wrapped in woven mats under the open sky, trusting the dry air and divine mercy to protect them, but you tender-footed, half-sick, and burnt from the sun are not permitted on the roof. You're told to help prepare the small supper, coarse bread baked earlier in a communal oven, preserved fish reeking of salt and age, and a bit of lentil stew. You sit beside the family mat as the food is placed in simple clay bowls. No plates, no utensils. You tear at the bread and scoop with your fingers, already filthy. The food is warm, slightly sour. It sits like a stone in your stomach. You crave water more than food, but the clay jar has gone warm and stale. The little water it holds tastes slightly of algae and potash. You drink it anyway, Conversation at the evening meal is sparse. The family's tired. Even the children, usually noisy and unruly, sit silently as they eat. The older woman who scolded you this morning mutters a prayer to Isis, her hands held over the last pieces of bread. One of the men wipes his face with his tunic and stares into the corner where a family cat watches lazily. The atmosphere isn't grimmed, simply resigned. This is life. This is how it has always been. What luxury do they have to complain about the sun when the gods themselves command it? Remember something a laborer muttered at the quarry earlier? The sun is both our king and our executioner. You didn't understand it then, you do now. Later, you're expected to help with small evening tasks. The oil lamps must be refilled expensive olive oil poured sparingly into simple clay bowls, with linen wicks that sputter and smoke. These are not decorative luxuries. They are vital. Without light, the narrow house becomes a maze of shadows and danger. Scorpions crawl freely. Mice scurry near the grain baskets. And worst of all, the air becomes still, and thick darkness itself feels like another burden to carry. There is no privacy, no escape. Every corner of the house bears the heat of the day, and every breath you take feels like you're inhaling through cloth. One of the older boys climbs up to the roof with a clay pot of water. He pours it over the earthen tiles to cool them before the family sleeps. It's a trick you've never seen. You ask why? He shrugs. It keeps the heat from baking us again tomorrow. You realize they're fighting not just today's sun, but the sun of tomorrow and the day after that. It is a daily war. The best they can hope for is to survive it and not conquer it. You are told to sleep near the door, in a corner where the heat is least oppressive. The mat you're given is scratchy and crawling with the scent of old straw. Your skin itches. Your hands are blistered. Your legs ache from standing, walking, lifting, enduring. And your mind is clouded with a new fear. What if tomorrow is hotter, the family says. A prayer to Ra, the sun god, as they prepare for bed. Not a plea for coolness or relief, but a prayer for balance. They ask Ra to rise again tomorrow. As painful as the sun is, it is still life. If it does not return, the world will collapse. The Nile will stop flowing. The crops will die. The demons of the underworld will rule the land. The sun is not optional. The sun is the law. You drift into a fitful sleep, surrounded by the groaning heat of walls that never forget the day's temperature. Your dreams are strange visions of spinning disks of fire, of sandstorms swallowing cities, of beetles dragging the sun across the sky. You wake again and again, your body damp, your throat parched, the house still hot as a forge. At one point, you rise and stagger outside for air. The night is quieter but not cooler. The breeze, if it exists, does not visit you. The stars are hard and bright, suspended in the black like jewels. You see a torch flickering across the road. Someone tending to livestock, another late worker. There are no shifts in Egypt, no end to labor, and the night is just another opportunity to serve. Back inside, someone has lit incense probably, to chase off insects, or the stench of fish and sweat. The smoke curls through the air like silk, clinging to your skin. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. You want to escape, but there is nowhere to go. Even in the darkness, the sun's memory lingers. You understand now that in ancient Egypt, the sun is more than a celestial body. It is the rhythm of life and death. Every structure, every hour, every gesture is built around it. It decides when people wake, when they work, when they eat, and when they bury their dead. Even the gods are shaped by the sun. Ra sails across the sky in his solar boat each day, fighting monsters of darkness. At night, he descends into the underworld, fending off serpents and chaos, only to rise again at dawn. Your suffering under this sun is not accidental. It is cosmic. It is part of the divine cycle. When your sweat pours, when your skin peels, when your mouth turns to parchment, it's not a mistake, it's a necessity. You are simply one more mortal caught beneath the eye of the gods. Somewhere in the city, a jackal howls. Perhaps a death has occurred. Perhaps a family failed to outrun the sun's punishment today. You listen closely, heart pounding. The sound fades. A rooster crows, confused by a torchlight or a dream. Then silence. You stare at the ceiling above you, a cracked smear of dried mud and straw. You wonder how long you can survive this. Not just the heat, not just the sun, but the constant submission to something so overpowering and indifferent. It's not the temperature that breaks you, it's the knowing that it will never, ever change. Eventually, you sleep again, because your body demands it. The heat presses on you like a blanket. You dream of ice, of rain, of clouds. And somewhere in the distance of your subconscious, you hear the horns begin to sound. Morning is coming. The sun is rising. Again, the curse resumes. You awake to the sound of distant wailing. Not the sharp cries of joy or children at play, but something slower, deeper, stretched across the air like the wail of a wind through stone morning. Someone has died. Death in ancient Egypt is not rare. It is constant, a second heartbeat beneath every daily task. People here speak of it with a hush, not out of fear, but reverence.
Not death!
It is not the end. It is the beginning of a perilous journey through the underworld. A labyrinth of divine judgment, terrifying monsters, and eternal consequences. But despite this spiritual poetry, the reality of death is not gentle. It is brutal, hot, and putrid. You are told to accompany one of the older sons to a funeral procession. Whether out of custom or to learn your place, you do not know. You walk with the small group through the dusty outskirts of the village toward a burial ground near the necropolis. Along the way, mourners smear their faces with ash. Women tear at their clothes and beat their chests rhythmically. A priest chants in a voice like gravel, reciting spells from the Book of the Dead Nod, from a scroll, but from memory. The scroll is too sacred, too expensive. The words must live in the body. Today they must guide the dead. The body has been wrapped in linen, coated in natron salts. The smell that clings to the air is acrid. A blend of rotting flesh, spices, incense, and sun-baked cloth. You gag. One of the attendants shoots you a sharp glance, a reminder that weakness is not honored here not in the face of sacred rites. The dead must be treated with dignity. Even in death, there is hierarchy. The more linen wraps, the more elaborate the resin. The more beautiful the amulets placed upon the chest, the higher the person's status. The person being buried today was no noble, but the ritual proceeds regardless. Every person hopes to reach the field of reeds in the afterlife emir of Egypt, only without pain or hunger. You are handed a jar of unguent soils and perfumes, meant to anoint the mummy's shroud. You hesitate, but the priest insists. Your fingers tremble as you pour the viscous mixture, which oozes like melted wax over the linen. The smell assaults you. Myrrh, frankincense, cinnamon, and beneath it all, the stench of decay, barely masked. The corpse is stiff, the features collapsed in on themselves, but the hands are folded over the chest with care. It strikes you how, despite the sacredness, death is deeply physical here. There is no escaping its weight. At the tomb entrance, offerings are laid out: bread, onions, beer in clay jugs, lotus flowers, and a carved figurine shabtement to work in the afterlife on behalf of the deceased. These are not symbolic gestures. The Egyptians believe the dead continue to labor. If unprepared, they will suffer in eternity. So even a poor family will sacrifice what they can. A few loaves, a worn statue, a beloved pet. Sometimes animals are mummified too. Cats, birds, even crocodiles if they bore significance to the departed or to the gods they served. You glance down and see a small, stiff cat wrapped in linen beside the body. Its eyes have been painted on the shroud, stares at you, hollow and eternal. Inside the tomb, you see the walls painted with scenes of daily life: fishing, farming, feasting. The dead must be reminded of the pleasures they wish to carry into the next world. These are not merely decorations, they are spells in color and line. The gods are shown towering and stern. Anubis with his jackal head stands over the embalming table. Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe, records the deeds of the deceased. And looming largest of all, Osiris, green-skinned and still, awaits judgment. You cannot look away. The priest's chant grows louder as the final rites are read. The opening of the mouth ceremony begins a ritual to reawaken the senses of the dead. A tool is touched to the mummy's lips, and prayers are whispered that the spirit may eat, drink, speak, and breathe again in the afterlife.
Oh.
The drama of it is unsettling. You find yourself wondering if the dead are truly gonna gnaw, just waiting. Then comes the sealing of the tomb. Clay bricks are stacked. Mud plaster is smeared thick over the doorway. The mourners bow low, touching their foreheads to the earth. The body is now entombed forever, sealed against both robbers and evil spirits. But you feel the weight of it. Still, the dead are not far. They linger, in memory, in objects, in the very earth beneath your feet. As you return with the mourners, the silence is heavy. Not with sadness, but with awe. Death is not taken lightly. To live in Egypt is to live always in its shadow. You understand now that survival here is not just about avoiding danger or enduring hardship. It is about navigating the invisible threads between the living and the dead, the sacred and the daily. You look again at the villagers, bent under the sun, eyes tired but reverent. Death is not strange to them. It is familiar, intimate, part of the rhythm of life. They have learned not to fear it, but to prepare for it with every breath. You, however, are still foreign to this idea. You think of your own fragile body exposed to heat, disease, labor, and now the final silence, wrapped in linen and sealed behind painted walls. It occurs to you that in this land you are always being measured by gods, by neighbors, by death itself. Every action must balance the scales. The Egyptians believe in mat, order, truth, harmony. And at death, your heart will be weighed against the feather of Mat. If it is heavy with sin or disorder, it will be fed to Amit, the devourer, and you will be lost forever. There is no second chance, so they prepare every day. They practice virtue not out of kindness, but necessity. They recite spells to purify the soul. They craft tombs before they are old. They choose their funerary masks while still alive. Even the poorest try to set aside enough for a proper burial. Because without ritual, there is no rest. Without rest, there is no afterlife. And without afterlife, what is the point of suffering at all? You, modern traveler, are shaken. Not only by the death you've witnessed, but by how close the line between life and death truly is here. There is no separation. Death is not an event, it is a neighbor. It walks with you in the streets, eats beside you at dinner, watches you while you sleep, and if you falter, you forget to respect it. It will take you without hesitation, to wrap you in linen, and send you on your way into the eternal desert. And the world will go on, just as it always has, under the watchful eyes of gods who expect no less. You've heard of the Nile in stories, always spoken of as a giver of life, a sacred artery that pulses through the dry bones of Egypt. And now, standing at its edge, you begin to understand the reverence. The sun has barely climbed the horizon, yet the waters already shimmer like molten silver. The surface broken only by the steady rhythm of fishermen in their papyrus skiffs. They call to each other with quiet urgency, casting nets into the shallows where tilapia flash just beneath the surface. Reeds sway gently along the banks, and ibises wade with meditative grace. It is peaceful, almost beautiful. But you've been here long enough now to see through the veil. The Nile is no gentle friend. It is a force that gives with one hand and takes with the other, and always it demands respect. Your host warns you not to get too close. She rises, he mutters. You look around in confusion. It's dry here. The ground beneath your feet is cracked and parched, the air thick with dust. But then he shows you the markings on the wall of a nearby granary. Lines carved year after year, recording the annual flood. The inundation known as Akhet. It is the season when the Nile swells from its southern tributaries, overflowing its banks in a slow, unstoppable wave that creeps over farmland, swallowing villages, temples, and roads alike. In a few weeks' time, the very spot where you now stand will be underwater. To the ancient Egyptians, this was not a disaster, but a miracle. The floods brought Kemet the black silt, rich in nutrients that turned barren land into thriving fields of wheat and barley. Without it, Egypt would be nothing but a sun-blasted skeleton of civilization. So they wait, they plan, they pray. The timing and extent of the flood determine the fate of the entire year. Too little water and famine. It's too much, and homes are swept away. You help transport jars of grain to higher ground, struggling under the weight. The people here are methodical, having done this every year since before history was written. Their calendar is built around the river. Their gods, especially Hapi, the Nile deity, are painted blue, heavy-bellied, adorned with reeds and water jugs. They offer lotus blossoms and loaves of bread, chanting praises in hopes the flood will be gentle, generous, balanced. Nature does not bargain. That night, a storm rolls in from the south. Lightning flashes over the horizon, illuminating the river in quick, ghostly pulses. Thunder shakes the earth. The air grows wet and feverish. You lie awake on the roof, watching the Nile rise like a great beast, silent and patient. When morning comes, the edge of the village is already sodden. Chickens wander nervously through puddles and frogs croak in places that were dry only hours before. Soon, the mosquitoes arrive. They rise in clouds from stagnant pools, landing on every exposed inch of skin. You slap them away uselessly, your arms covered in bites that turn red and swell. Children cry from the itching. The elders mutter about fevers. They know what's coming. The still waters left behind by the flood-breed disease malaria, dysentery, waterborne parasites that creep into the body unnoticed until it's too late. There are no antibiotics, no mosquito nets, just herbal poultices, prayers, and hope. You follow a farmer to the edge of the receding waters, where the silt is now thick and black. The smell is pungent, a mix of rot and new life. He kneels and presses a handful of the mud to his forehead, a sign of gratitude. You do the same, though the stench makes you reel. Then comes the planting. Men and boys drive oxen through the thick earth, dragging wooden plows behind them. It is back-breaking, blistering work. No one complains. Your hands are soft, unused to this labor. After just an hour, your shoulders ache and your palms split. You wipe sweat from your brow, but your hands are coated in mud and flies. There is no escaping the dirt here. It's in your food, your clothes, your teeth. You cough, and the taste of Nile silt lingers at the back of your throat. Then there's the danger no one dares speak aloud: crocodiles. In the deeper parts of the river, they wait, patient as death. You hear stories whispered at night of children pulled under while bathing, of fishermen never returning. These aren't fables, they're facts. You begin to understand why the Egyptians revere Sobek, the crocodile-headed god. His temples are built along riverbanks, his likeness fed with meat, his power feared. Here, even gods have teeth, still the Nile gives. After weeks of toil, the green shoots begin to emerge from the field's promise in the shape of barley and onions. The villagers cheer. A child is born. A festival is held. Bread is baked in clay ovens, its smell wafting through the alleyways. Music rises: drums, flutes, the clapping of hands. There is dancing in the square. You join them, if only for a moment, and in that flicker of time, you almost believe you've found peace. But then the sky darkens again, and the Nile reminds you who is in control. A neighbor's home collapses from rot in the walls, eaten by the lingering damp. A young girl dies of fever. The food from the granaries begins to spoil. Rats scurry across the rooftops at night. You swat at them in your sleep, but they keep coming. Every blessing here is shadowed by risk, every joy tempered by threat. You realize you are not a master of the land not here. The Nile is both cradle and crucible. You cannot survive without it. Yet it may drown you just the same. It is beautiful. It is terrible. It does not care whether you live or die. You've heard of the Nile in stories, always spoken of as a giver of life, a sacred artery that pulses through the dry bones of Egypt. And now, standing at its edge, you begin to understand the reverence. The sun has barely climbed the horizon, yet the waters already shimmer like molten silver. The surface broken only by the steady rhythm of fishermen in their papyrus skiffs. They call to each other with quiet urgency, casting nets into the shallows where tilapia flash just beneath the surface. Reeds sway in the humid breeze. The air smells faintly of fish, mud, and wet stone. You hear the creak of rope, the splash of oars, the lazy bellow of water buffalo bathing near the bank. There's beauty here come, and measured like the beat of a drum, ancient as the pyramids themselves. But you've been here long enough now to see through the veil. The Nile is no gentle friend. It is a force that gives with one hand and takes with the other, and always it demands respect. Your host. A sun-baked man with hands like cracked leather warns you not to get too close. She rises, he mutters, eyes cast toward the hazy south where storm clouds boil beyond the horizon. You look around in confusion. It's dry here. The ground beneath your feet is cracked and parched, the air thick with dust. your sandals coated in a fine layer of silt. But then, he shows you the markings on the wall of a nearby granary. Lines carved year after year, recording the annual flood, the inundation known as a kit. Each line marks a height, and each height tells a story. Bounty or famine, ruin or prosperity. It is the season when the Nile swells from its southern tributaries, overflowing its banks in a slow, unstoppable wave that creeps over farmland, swallowing villages, temples, livestock, and sometimes lives. To the ancient Egyptians, this is not a disaster but a miracle. The floods bring Commit the black silt, rich in nutrients, that transforms barren desert into thriving fields of wheat, barley, leeks, and flax. Without it, Egypt would be nothing but a sun-blasted skeleton of civilization, a mirage of stone and dust. So they wait, they plan, they pray. The timing and extent of the flood determine the fate of the entire year. Too little water, and the land cracks under the sun's fury. Too much, and homes collapse, drowned in rot and debris. The delicate balance is life itself. The people know this. They've always known. You spend your days helping transport jars of grain to higher ground, struggling under the weight. The sun blisters your neck, flies bite at your face, and the oxen pulling carts grunt in protest. The people here are methodical, almost serene in their labor. They've done this every year since before history was written. Their calendar is built around the river. Their gods, especially Hapi, the Nile deity, are painted blue, heavy-bellied, adorned with reeds and water jugs. The villagers offer lotus blossoms and loaves of bread at clay altars, chanting praises in hopes the flood will be gentle, generous, balanced. But nature does not bargain. Hapi doesn't answer. That night, a storm rolls in from the south. Lightning flashes over the horizon, illuminating the river in quick, ghostly pulses. Thunder shakes the earth with each distant growl. The smell of rain, a thick, heavy scent, settles over the village like a blanket. The air grows wet and feverish. Your clothes cling to your skin, and your hair drips with sweat. Before the rain even begins, you lie awake on the roof, wrapped in a linen sheet, watching the Nile rise like a great beast, silent and patient. When morning comes, the edge of the village is already sodden. Chickens wander nervously through puddles, and frogs croak in places that were dry only hours before. A boy points to the waterline with a trembling finger. It has crept forward only by inches, but unmistakably, and it will not stop. Soon the mosquitoes arrive. They rise in clouds from stagnant pools, landing on every exposed inch of skin. You slap them away uselessly, your arms covered in bites that turn red and swell. Children cry from the itching. The elders mutter about fevers. They know what's coming. The still waters left behind by the flood breed disease malaria. Dysentery, waterborne parasites that creep into the body unnoticed until it's too late. There are no antibiotics here, no mosquito nets, no clean syringes or bottled water. Just herbal poultices, spells from the priest healers, and the quiet resignation of those who know they've seen the signs before. You're sent to collect mud bricks from a collapsed home, wading knee-deep into the muck. The stench is unbearable, a pungent cocktail of decay, manure, and rotting vegetation. Your feet sink with every step, and when you try to lift one leg, your sandal remains behind. The mud sucks greedily, as if the river itself wants to claim you. Eventually, you learn to walk with a kind of rhythm, rolling your foot forward before lifting. It helps a little. You follow a farmer to the edge of the receding waters, where the silt is now thick and black. The smell is intense, a mix of rot and new life. He kneels and presses a handful of the mud to his forehead, a sign of gratitude and reverence. You do the same, though the stench makes you gag. The villagers begin planting. Men and boys drive oxen through the thick earth, dragging wooden plows behind them. Women scatter seeds by hand, their shawls trailing in the breeze. It is back-breaking, blistering work. No one complains. Your hands are soft, unused to this labor. After just an hour, your shoulders ache and your palms split. You wipe sweat from your brow, but your hands are coated in mud and flies. There's no escaping the dirt here. It's in your food, your clothes, your teeth. Cough, and the taste of Nile silt lingers at the back of your throat. When you kneel to drink from a clay jar, the water is cloudy and warm, with a faintly metallic taste. You try not to think about what's living in it. Then there's the danger no one dares speak aloud: crocodiles. In the deeper parts of the river, they wait, patient as death. You hear stories whispered at night of children pulled under while bathing, of fishermen never returning, of a priest swallowed whole during a festival. These aren't fables, they're facts. You begin to understand why the Egyptians revere Sobek, the crocodile-headed god. His temples are built along riverbanks, his likeness fed with meat, his power feared. Here, even gods have teeth, the Nile gives. After weeks of toil, the green shoots begin to emerge from the field's promise in the shape of barley, onions, and flax. The villagers cheer. A child is born. A festival is held. Bread is baked in clay ovens, its smell wafting through the alleyways. Music rises, drums, flutes, the clapping of hands. There is dancing in the square. The women wear flower garlands. The children chase each other, giggling through the reed-covered courtyards. You join them, if only for a moment, and in that flicker of time, you almost believe you've found peace. But the Nile is never done. The waters recede slowly, leaving behind pockets of brackish stink and debris. A neighbor's home collapses from rot in the walls, eaten by the lingering damp. A young girl dies of fever. Food from the granaries begins to spoil, sacks of barley turning soft and moldy. Rats scurry across the rooftops at night, their black shapes outlined against the stars. You swat at them in your sleep, but they keep coming. Every blessing here is shadowed by risk, every joy tempered by threat. Later, as the days grow longer and hotter, you're told to help dig new irrigation channels before the next planting season. You swing a copper shovel into the earth, your muscles screaming with each stroke. There's no machinery here, just hands, stone tools, sweat, and prayers. When you collapse in the shade of a date palm, an old woman brings you a fig and places it gently in your hand. You nod in gratitude, but you can barely speak. Your skin is blistered, your stomach churns, heat rises off the earth in waves. And all the while, the Nile watches. You realize, slowly, and then all at once, that you are not a master of the land not here. The Nile is both cradle and crucible. You cannot survive without it, yet it may drown you just the same. It is beautiful, terrible. It does not care whether you live or die. If you ever thought that life in ancient Egypt was all reverence and celebration of the gods, surrounded by golden temples and wise priests, think again. The grand monuments, the pyramids, temples, colossal statues, did not build themselves, nor were they raised by gentle hands or kind hearts. Behind every stone, every block of limestone, every polished granite pillar, lay the sweat, the cracked skin, and the aching bones of thousands of laborers. And if you were not born into privilege, your days would be ruled by the whip and the sun one as relentless as the other. From dawn until dusk, and often beyond, laborers were driven to the limits of human endurance. There was no concept of weekends or holidays for most. No breaks except the bare minimum needed to catch a breath, wipe the grime from your face, and gulp down coarse bread and sour beer. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning fields and quarries into ovens, burning exposed skin to a red-blistered rawness. The workers' hands were cracked, nails split or torn away from hauling heavy loads. Their feet were swollen and raw from sand and sharp stones. The back-breaking work left their bodies trembling and exhausted. Yet the overseers demanded more stone hauled, more mud bricks formed, more sand shoveled. You find yourself in a massive labor camp near a limestone quarry. The noise is overwhelming. Shouts and commands echo through the air. The scraping of chisels on rock, the thud of massive stone blocks being dragged over earth and gravel. The camp is a sea of men, clad in linen kilts, their bodies darkened by dust and sweat, faces grim and determined. The overseers patrol with staves and whips, barking orders, their faces set in hard lines that never soften. You're handed a Tula wooden lever to pry loose stone blocks from the quarry face. It is heavier than you expected, rough against your palms. The stone is unforgiving. After hours of struggle, your arms feel like they might snap. Your muscles scream, but you dare not show weakness. A shout rings out. One of the men has dropped a block, and the overseer's whip cracks in the air. The man flinches, but keeps working. You realize this is the unspoken rule: keep going or suffer the pain. The midday sun is a punishing force. There is no shade in the quarry. You stagger to the small mud brick hut where water is kept, a handful of clay jars offering lukewarm, muddy liquid. You drink greedily, but it barely soothes your parched throat. The flies swarm relentlessly, buzzing near your eyes and mouth. Some men spit in the dust, others slump against walls, exhausted but unable to rest long. The overseers watch with sharp eyes. Rest is a luxury not afforded here. The work is not just physical. Mental strain is suffocating. Every day you wake with fear of injury, of punishment, of disease. Broken bones are common. Cuts and wounds fester in the heat and dirt. There is no medicine except simple poultices of herbs, and even these are rationed. The sick are often left behind, cast aside to the mercies of vultures and jackals. The air is thick with the stench of sweat, urine, and unwashed bodies. Despite this, camaraderie blossoms among the workers' brief moments of laughter. Shared bread, whispered prayers to protective gods like Base and Hathor. One afternoon, you're sent to haul a massive stone block on a wooden sled, dragged by teams of oxen and men. The path is uneven and littered with loose stones. The sled jams. You push with all your might, the stones scraping and grinding against the earth. The overseer steps closer, raising his whip. The crack echoes like thunder. Your heart pounds. Your breath comes in ragged gasps. You push harder, tears streaming down your dusty face. The sled moves just a few inches, but it moves. Around you, others grunt and strain, their faces red and slick with sweat. Despite the agony, the workers here are not slaves in the traditional sense. Many are peasants conscripted for the season's labor, paying a debt to the state or the gods. Some are skilled artisans, others simple farmers, forced to leave their fields during the inundation. But the discipline is absolute. There is no room for rebellion. The state, through its officials and priests, ensures obedience with harsh penalties. A man caught shirking work might lose a finger or worse. The social hierarchy is brutally clear. Above the laborers stand the overseers' men in finely woven linen, protected from the sun by wide-brimmed hats and sandals of soft leather. They wield power casually, their status marked by ornate jewelry and the respect of officials. Below them are scribes who record the daily output, the number of blocks moved, bricks molded, and workers present. These records are painstakingly maintained on papyrus scrolls, ensuring the pharaoh's grand projects proceed without delay. You realize how vast this system is, how deeply embedded in the culture. The construction of a pyramid is not merely a feat of engineering. It is a manifestation of divine order, the physical expression of the pharaoh's eternal rule. Every block you move, every drop of sweat you shed, is a tribute to that sacred power. To falter is not just to risk punishment, but to threaten the very balance of math, the cosmic order that governs Egypt. In moments of rest, you glimpse the workers' small acts of defiance, a shared joke, a secret song hummed softly, a furtive glance toward the river promising escape or relief. But these are fleeting. The whips crack, the overseers shout, and the sun's relentless gaze drag you back to reality. Your body aches in ways you never knew possible. Your clothes stick to you, caked with dust and sweat. Your lips are cracked and bleeding, yet you keep moving, because to stop means death. At night, after the long day's labor, you collapse into a crowded communal hut. The air inside is heavy with smoke from oil lamps and the scent of cooking lentils. The men around you speak softly of home, of families left behind, of gods who might protect them. A priest visits sometimes to offer blessings, drawing symbols on their skin with coal, muttering prayers for strength and survival. Listen, trying to understand, but fatigue blurs your thoughts. Sleep comes fitfully, haunted by dreams of falling stones and blazing suns. The labor camp is a world apart from the grandeur of the temples you have seen. Here, the cost of empire is written on every cracked palm and every grimace of pain. The monuments may last for millennia. The men who build them are often forgotten to swallowed by desert winds. Voices lost beneath the stones they placed. As dawn breaks, you wake again to the harsh cries of overseers and the clang of tools. The sun rises like a fireball, promising another day under its merciless rule. You pull on your linen kilt, aching in every muscle, and prepare to face the quarry once more. Survival here is a test of endurance, spirit, and will. Few are chosen by the gods to endure it, and you know deep in your bones that you would not last. The market square is alive with chaos the moment you step into it. It sprawls like a living organism at the heart of the town, a hive buzzing with activity beneath the unrelenting sun. The air is thick with dust and the sharp tang of spices, mingled with the briny scent of fish hauled fresh from the Nile. Merchants shout to each other and to passers-by, hawking their goods with a mixture of cunning and desperation. The sounds of bartering, haggling, laughter, and the occasional sharp insult ricochet off the mud brick walls, blending into a relentless roar. Here, every day is a battle, and survival depends on shrewdness as much as strength. You navigate the narrow aisles between wooden stalls, your senses assaulted by an overwhelming array of sights, smells, and sounds. Baskets brim with dates so sweet they seem almost too good to be true. Piles of freshly baked flatbreads steam faintly, their warm, yeasty aroma mingling with the earthiness of spilled grain. Clay pots, handmade and painted with simple patterns, clink softly as they are stacked. On one side, a merchant slices open a papyrus scroll with a sharp knife to read aloud the day's announcements and prices, drawing a crowd of curious onlookers. Despite the lively atmosphere, you quickly realize the market is not a place of leisure. For many here, it is the front line of a daily struggle against hunger, debt, and survival. Farmers come to sell their harvest, but rarely get a fair price. Traders with exotic goods from distant lands flaunt their wares lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, cedarwood from Lebanon, gold dust from Nubia yet. Even these rare riches rarely touch the lives of the poor. Then, they watch with longing, hoping for just enough barley or onions to trade for salt or cloth. You try to purchase some onions, but are met with skepticism and a sharp price. Your foreign appearance marks you as a wealthy outsider at least, one with coin. A wiry man eyes you, pressing for more money than the onions are worth. The marketplace is a theater of power plays, and you quickly learn that showing desperation will cost you dearly. You grit your teeth and haggle fiercely, your tongue clumsy in the ancient language, but your tone firm. Finally, a deal is struck, and you walk away clutching your prize, wary of the eyes that follow. Food is a precious commodity here, and famine is never far from anyone's mind. The memory of bad floods or locust swarms lingers like a shadow, making each transaction heavy with urgency. You watch as a mother tries to buy barley to feed her children, counting out small copper rings her entire savings. The merchant's eyes are hard, but not unkind. He lowers his price just a bit, and the woman breathes a quiet thanks. These small acts of mercy are rare and treasured. The market is also a place of information. Rumors, news, and gossip flow faster than the Nile and flood. You overhear talk of the pharaoh's decrees, upcoming festivals, or the arrival of foreign dignitaries. The priests use the market to spread their messages, weaving prophecy into their sermons to the crowds. You feel caught between worlds, the ancient gods who rule over this land, and the people whose lives are shaped by forces beyond their control. As you move deeper into the market, you encounter artisans, potters, weavers, jewelers, each fiercely proud of their craft. The weavers show you fine linen, its thread count astonishingly high, glimmering faintly in the sunlight. Jewelry glints from wooden tables, beads of carnelian, turquoise, and gold fashioned into necklaces and bracelets that must have taken hours of meticulous work. The sound of a hammer striking metal rings out as a goldsmith shapes delicate amulets in the shape of the ankh, the symbol of life. Yet even here, the gleam of wealth is tempered by hardship. Many artisans live in cramped quarters above their workshops, their children working alongside them to help make ends meet. Disease is common, and accidents frequent. One slip of the chisel can mean a lost finger or worse. The air smells faintly of resin, dust, and sweat, a reminder that beauty here is born of toil. Your feet ache, and the sun beats down without mercy. Dust swirls around your ankles, kicked up by carts pulled by donkeys laden with goods. The relentless heat drains your strength, and the lack of shade offers little relief. At one stall, you buy a small clay jar of sour beer, thick, bitter, and gritty. It refreshes you just enough to keep going, but you know the effects won't last long. Nearby, children run through the alleys, laughing and dodging between adults. Their faces are streaked with dirt, their clothes patched and worn. Some sell small trinkets or charms made of faience, hoping to earn a few copper coins. Others beg, their eyes wide with hunger and fatigue. You feel a pang of helplessness, wondering how many of these children will survive the year. As the day wears on, you notice the presence of temple officials and tax collectors. Their sharp eyes scan the crowd, seeking merchants who have failed to pay their dues. When they find someone, a loud confrontation ensues, drawing the attention of all nearby. The merchant is forced to hand over a portion of his goods or coin, sometimes violently. The market, for all its vibrancy, is also a place of fear and control. Taxes are high, and failure to pay can mean ruin or worse. Despite the hardships, the market pulses with life. Traders from faraway lands bring strange spices, colorful textiles, and exotic animals. The chatter of foreign tongues adds to the cacophony. You see camels from Arabia and gold from Nubia, reminding you that Egypt is not isolated but part of a wider, often brutal world of trade and conquest. As the sun begins to sink, the market slowly quiets. Merchants pack up their stalls, bargaining in hushed tones over the day's profits. You watch as a group of women gather to share leftovers, a few stale loaves. Some dried fish beef for heading home through narrow streets lined with mud brick houses. Lamps flicker on, casting golden pools of light. The scent of cooking fires drifts up to the evening sky. You realize that the market is more than just a place to buy and sell. It is the heart of community, the crossroads of hope and despair, power and survival. Every coin exchanged, every word spoken, is part of a delicate dance that keeps this ancient society alive, fragile yet fiercely enduring beneath the endless Egyptian sun. By the time you return to your lodgings, your body is tired and dusty, your throat dry from shouting and dust. You wash your face in a basin of water brought from the Nile, but the grime clings stubbornly to your skin. As you lie down, the sounds of the market fade into the night, but the echoes of its struggles and triumphs linger in your mind. In this land of dust and gold, survival is never certain, and every day is a test of wit, endurance, and spirit. From the smallest village to the grandest city, the pharaoh's presence is everywhere unseen, yet undeniable. He is the living God, the earthly embodiment of divine order, whose word is law and whose will shapes every corner of Egypt. To survive a day in this ancient land means understanding that your life and your labor and your very fate depend on the whims and decrees of a man who commands, not just armies, but the forces of heaven itself. The weight of his word presses down on every soul beneath the blazing sun, an invisible burden heavier than any stone you might haul. In the bustling administrative centers, the pharaoh's power is wielded through a vast network of officials, scribes, and overseers, men and women trained in the sacred arts of record-keeping, taxation, and law enforcement. Their role is to translate the distant commands of the throne into concrete actions, collecting grain, forcing conscription, allocating land, and managing monumental building projects. You witness the precision of this bureaucracy firsthand as you enter a large hall filled with papyrus scrolls, ink-stained hands, hurriedly scribing figures and names. The air is thick with the scent of ink and dust, and the murmur of whispered calculations fills the room. Every citizen is numbered and accounted for. There are censuses, tax rolls, and labor registries. Failure to appear or pay your dues invites swift retribution. The pharaoh's officials do not tolerate negligence. You watch as a clerk sternly rebukes a farmer who cannot produce enough grain. The man's face is pale with fear, knowing that failure could mean the loss of his land or worse. This is no idle threat. Rumors abound of families torn from their homes, sold into servitude, or conscripted for dangerous expeditions when debts mount. The law is absolute, a rigid structure meant to preserve the sacred balance of order and justice. But it is also a tool of control wielded to maintain the pharaoh's dominance over a vast and diverse population. Justice is dispensed swiftly, often harshly. Thieves may lose fingers, rebellious workers may be beaten or imprisoned, and those who question the pharaoh's authority vanish into obscurity. The phrase "the pharaoh's justice" carries a dual meaning: divine fairness and ruthless enforcement. You hear stories whispered in shadowed alley tales of courtiers scheming for favor, priests manipulating sacred texts, and officials enriching themselves at the expense of the common people. Corruption is an ever-present threat, a crack in the pharaoh's shining facade. Yet open dissent is dangerous. The pharaoh's eyes and ears are everywhere, and his agents swift to silence troublemakers. To survive, you must learn to navigate these treacherous waters, knowing when to speak, when to obey, and when to remain invisible. The pharaoh's word also reaches into daily life through the temples, which serve as centers of both spiritual and political power. Priests perform elaborate rituals to honor the gods and ensure the pharaoh's continued favor. They teach the people that obedience is not only practical, but sacred. You attend a temple ceremony, where incense smoke curls upward and chants fill the air. Statues gleam with gold leaf, and offerings of bread, wine, and flowers are presented with solemn grace. The priests' voices rise and fall in hypnotic cadence, invoking the gods to bless the land, the pharaoh, and the people. Yet beneath the grandeur, the priests wield power with a keen eye for maintaining the status quo. They control vast tracts of land and wealth, and their influence reaches into the hearts of every Egyptian. To defy the pharaoh is to defy the gods themselves, and the priests remind the populace of this through sermons and sacred texts. This intertwining of religion and authority binds the people tightly to a system that demands loyalty and submission. You witness a decree being read aloud in the town square, a proclamation from the pharaoh. Ordering new taxes to fund a military campaign or a building project, the crowd listens in silence, faces etched with resignation or anger. Some mutter under their breath, others exchange worried glances. You sense a fragile tension beneath the surface, a mix of pride in their civilization and fear of the cost. The pharaoh's ambitions are vast, and his reach unyielding. As the sun sets behind the horizon, casting long shadows over the city's walls, you reflect on the immense machinery of power that governs every aspect of life. The pharaoh is both protector and oppressor, god and mortal, visionary and tyrant. His word shapes the destinies of millions, and to live under it is to live with the constant awareness of forces far greater than oneself. To survive here, you must learn to carry the weight of the pharaoh's word with stoic resolve, navigating a world where loyalty is demanded. Justice is a double-edged sword, and the line between survival and ruin is perilously thin. In the bustling cities and quiet villages of ancient Egypt, disease lurks like a silent predator unseen, insidious and deadly. While the Nile's gifts nourish the land and its people, the shadows of sickness and decay stretch long over their lives, threatening to unravel the fragile tapestry of survival with every breath taken. To survive even a single day here means confronting a world where illness is as much a part of existence as the sun or the sand. Sanitation is rudimentary at best. Waste piles up near homes, where the arid climate slows decomposition but does nothing to prevent the spread of filth and contamination. Open drains carry refuse through narrow streets, mingling with stagnant pools of water left behind by the flooding Nile. Flies swarm in thick clouds, buzzing relentlessly around uncovered food and exposed wounds. You watch as children play near piles of trash, their laughter masking the danger of parasites waiting to invade. The air is heavy with odors, feces, rotting fish, sweat, and smoke that assault your senses and make breathing a challenge. Water, the source of life, is also a source of peril. Though the Nile flows ceaselessly, the water is often tainted with human and animal waste. Drinking it untreated is a gambler risk that many cannot afford to avoid. You see villagers boil water over smoky fires, straining it through coarse cloth. But the process is far from foolproof. Diseases like dysentery and cholera spread rapidly, turning one's healthy bodies into fragile vessels of pain. Those afflicted become weak and dehydrated, their skin pale and eyes sunken. There are no hospitals here, no doctors with potions or needles, only the local healer, armed with herbs and prayers. Malaria is an invisible enemy, stalking every shaded corner and still pool. Mosquitoes breed in the warm, stagnant waters left behind after the Nile's retreat, their tiny bites introducing a fever that can swiftly turn fatal. You hear the haunting cries of children struck by the disease, their bodies racked with chills and sweat. Mothers cradled them desperately, hoping to the gods for mercy that does not come. The medical knowledge of the time is limited, and many succumb quietly in their homes, buried in shallow graves just beyond the village edge. Beyond the riverside communities, you encounter the deserts and rocky plateaus where dust storms carry fine particles that scratch at lungs and eyes. Respiratory illnesses are common, and you find yourself coughing more frequently, your throat raw and burning. The lack of clean air adds another layer of hardship to already burdened bodies. Those with chronic ailments have little chance of recovery. Life here demands strength and resilience that few can sustain. In homes, the threat of infection is ever present. Injuries from daily work cuts, burns, broken bones often become fatal due to infection. Without antiseptics or sterile bandages, wounds fester, turning gangrenous and spreading disease. You witness a man limp into the village, his legs swollen and discolored after a fall from scaffolding. The healer wraps it in linen, soaked with crushed herbs, but the pain and fever tell a grim story. The man's family watches anxiously, knowing that many such injuries end in death. Childbirth, a time of hope and new beginnings, is fraught with peril. Mortality rates for mothers and infants are high. You hear the sobbing of a woman whose newborn did not survive the night, a sorrow shared by many families. The midwife works tirelessly, relying on rituals, chants, and herbal mixtures to ease labor and prevent complications. Yet the forces of nature and chance are merciless. Mental anguish runs alongside physical suffering. The weight of loss, poverty, and uncertainty presses heavily on hearts. Depression and despair are silent companions, their effects less visible, but no less deadly. People turn to religion, to the gods and the afterlife, for comfort and meaning in a world so often cruel. Despite these grim realities, life endures. Villagers gather in small groups to share knowledge of remedies, infusions of willow bark for pain, garlic for infections, honey to dress wounds. They rely on the wisdom passed down through generations, blending science, superstition, and faith. Temples offer healing rituals, and priests invoke divine intervention, hoping to stave off the shadows of disease. You come to understand that health here is a precarious gift, easily lost and hard won. To survive a day in ancient Egypt means constant vigilance against invisible enemies. A daily battle fought not just with tools and sweat, but with resilience, hope, and faith. As night falls and the village settles under a blanket of stars, the sounds of groans and whispered prayers fill the air. The shadows of disease and decay may never fully lift, but the people endure, clinging to life and each other in the harshest of lands. Poverty in ancient Egypt was a relentless shadow cast over the lives of the majority. Though the towering pyramids and golden artifacts speak of a civilization rich in grandeur, the reality for most was a daily grind against want and despair. To survive a day here meant knowing hunger as a constant companion, wearing threadbare clothes patched again and again, and walking a tightrope where a single misstep could plunge a family into destitution. You awake before dawn in a cramped mud brick home, the coolness of morning, a brief respite before the day's heat and toil. The walls are thin and crumbling, offering little protection against the biting desert winds that seep through cracks. Inside, a family of 7 shares this small space: parents, children, and a frail grandmother whose face is etched with years of hardship. The floor is hard-packed earth, scattered with a few worn mats and scraps of fabric. There is no furniture save a wooden stool and a few clay pots, their surfaces chipped and stained. Food is scarce. The morning meal is humblesome barley porridge thickened with dates and a sip of bitter beer brewed from leftover grains. It is barely enough to fuel the day ahead. You watch as the children eat eagerly, their thin arms and faces betraying malnutrition's slow grip. Yet they smile and laugh, unaware of the fragile thread by which their lives hang. The parents speak in hushed tones of debts owed to the local merchant, the rising price of grain, and the uncertain harvest. Work is the family's only hope. The men and older boys head out to toil in the fields or the quarries, hired as seasonal laborers or conscripted by the state. Women fetch water from the river, weave cloth, or tend small vegetable gardens if they are lucky. Children run errands or gather firewood, their small hands blistered and calloused. Elderly, unable to work, rely on the charity of kin or the meager offerings of village alms. The social divide is stark and unforgiving. The ruling class, the priests, scribes, and officials live in comfort, adorned in fine linen and jewelry, sheltered in spacious homes, shaded by date palms. But you, like most, dwell among the masses, whose sweat waters the fields, yet whose voices remain unheard. The state demands taxes and labor, but offers little in return. You wonder how many dreams have withered under this relentless pressure. Debt is a silent killer. It's unable to pay, families fall deeper into bondage. Land is seized, possessions sold, and and sometimes even children are pledged to creditors as servants. You hear whispered rumors of families torn apart, of parents forced to give up their offspring to temples or wealthy patrons. Such fates are a cruel irony in a land that honors family above all else. Health and hygiene are luxuries few can afford. Clothing is washed infrequently, patched with rough stitches, and worn through in places. Soap is rare and precious. You notice sores on skin left untreated, lice hidden in tangled hair, and feet swollen from walking barefoot on blistering stones. The smell of unwashed bodies mingles with cooking fires and livestock. Education is beyond reach for most children, while the elite sons study in cool, quiet chambers, learning to read and write sacred texts. You see the youth of the poor learning harsh lessons from life itself. How to survive hunger, how to bargain, how to endure pain. Literacy is a distant dream, and with it, the doors to power and influence remain firmly shut. As the day progresses, you face the harsh sun once more, working fields or hauling stones as sweat burns your eyes. Hunger gnaws at your belly, and the water you drink is warm and gritty. The work is exhausting and never-ending. There is little hope of rest or relief. The horizon seems to stretch endlessly, promising no respite. Yet even in this harsh world, small joys persist. A neighbor shares a handful of figs. Children play with makeshift toys fashioned from scraps. Families gather at night to tell stories and sing songs passed down through generations. Faith in the gods provides comfort. Offerings are made at small shrines, prayers whispered for protection and bounty. But beneath these moments of warmth lies a harsh truth. Poverty is a relentless grip, squeezing tight with no promise of release. The cycle of want and toil is unbroken. To survive a day in ancient Egypt is to live always on the edge, balancing between hope and despair in a land that both nourishes and neglects its people. The dawn breaks pale and cruel, the first light piercing the thin walls of your modest home like a blade. There is no time to linger and sleep. The day demands your strength, your sweat, and your submission. To survive a day in ancient Egypt means accepting a life bound to endless labor, where every muscle aches and every breath is heavy with exertion. There is no escape from the grind, no pause to catch your breath before the sun sears your back once more. Daily life is punctuated by superstitions and fears. Ill omens, a comet, a broken pot, an unusual animal sighting can send a village into panic. Protective amulets are worn, spells are muttered, and curses are feared. The boundary between the seen and unseen worlds is thin, and you are acutely aware that your survival depends on navigating both with care. Social roles, too, are rigidly defined. Men and women have prescribed duties, and stepping outside these bounds invites suspicion. Marriage and family life are governed by tradition, with ceremonies that echo through generations. The hierarchy is clear: pharaoh at the top, followed by priests, scribes, artisans, and peasants. Mobility is rare, and your place in this order feels like a chain around your neck. As the sun sinks low, casting long shadows over the land, you reflect on the relentlessness of these cycles. Life in ancient Egypt is a constant repetition of duties and devotions, a march that leaves little room for escape or change. The gods and pharaohs demand obedience. The ancestors watch with stern eyes, and time itself presses onward, indifferent to human suffering. To survive a day in this world is to submit to these rhythms, to find solace in their certainty, even as they constrain you. It is a life where tradition is both a refuge and a prison, where the past is ever present, and the future uncertain, but bound by sacred law. The relentless march of time and tradition is the heartbeat of Egypt's steady, unyielding, and eternal. In ancient Egypt, beneath the grandeur of temples and the majesty of the Nile, the shadow of war and defense loomed ceaselessly. Though the land was often prosperous, and the pharaoh revered as a god-king, survival here demanded constant vigilance and readiness for conflict. From desert borders to river crossings, Egypt's frontiers were fraught with tension-rival kingdoms. Nomadic tribes and ambitious invaders all threatened the fragile peace. A day meant living under the heavy weight of this eternal burden, where the call to arms could shatter the quiet of your village or city without warning. From your earliest years, the sounds of marching soldiers and the clang of weapons are familiar. Young boys are trained to carry wooden swords and shields, taught the rudiments of combat by older warriors. The community gathers whenever news arrives of skirmishes or invasions, a mix of fear and resolve settling over the people. The pharaoh's armies are vast but stretched thin, and the defense of the land often falls to farmers and laborers conscripted into service, expected to leave their fields and families behind without hesitation. When war comes, it arrives not as a distant thunder, but as a sudden storm. You hear the cries of scouts warning of approaching foes, Nubians from the south, Libyans from the west, or marauding tribes from the Sinai deserts. The pharaoh issues decrees calling for levies of men, and you are among those summoned. There is no choice but to obey. Refusal is treason, punishable by death. You leave behind the familiar, the fertile fields, and the comforting rhythm of daily labor, stepping into a harsh new world where survival depends on skill, courage, and luck. Military camps are grim places. Rows of tents stretch across dusty plains, men crowded together under the merciless sun and biting cold of the desert night. The air is thick with smoke from fires and the scent of sweat and fear. Training is brutal, marching for miles, drilling with weapons that are crude yet deadly, and enduring punishments for even minor infractions. The hierarchy is rigid, discipline absolute. Officers bark orders with little patience, and the threat of the whip, or worse, keeps soldiers in line. Armor is heavy and uncomfortable, fashioned from bronze scales or leather, and helmets offer little protection against the blazing sun. The weapons, spears, bows, and sickle-shaped swords called kapishar, sharp but require strength and skill to wield effectively. Many conscripts enter battle unprepared, their bodies still accustomed to plowing fields rather than clashing with foes. You feel the weight of the gear pressing down on you, the sweat stinging your eyes, and the pounding of your heart as you prepare for what might come. When battle erupts, it is chaos and carnage. The clashing of metal, the cries of the wounded and dying, and the pounding of hooves fill the air. You see comrades fall, faces twisted in pain, blood staining the dust beneath them. The sun beats down relentlessly, blurring the line between life and death. Fear is constant. Every arrow loosed could be your last. Every charge might be the final one. Beyond the battlefield, the consequences of war ripple through the land. Fields lie untended, granaries emptied to feed armies, and villages pillaged or destroyed. Refugees flee into cities already burdened with poverty and disease. The economy strains under the weight of constant military campaigns, and you watch as food prices rise and resources dwindle. Yet war also offers a grim form of hope. Victorious soldiers gain prestige and sometimes wealth, and the spoils of conquest enrich the elite. Tales of heroism and sacrifice are celebrated in songs and stories, immortalizing those who fought for the pharaoh's glory. But for most, war is a brutal interruption to a life already marked by hardship. As the dust settles and the soldiers return, you come home changed, body bruised, spirit weary, and future uncertain. The land you fought to defend still demands your labor, your sweat, and your obedience. The eternal burden of war and defense is never truly lifted. It is woven into the fabric of Egyptian life, a constant reminder that survival here is never guaranteed, and peace is as fragile as the desert bloom. In ancient Egypt, the promise of eternity is a shimmering thread woven through every aspect of life and death. The pharaohs, priests, and people alike sought to transcend the mortal coil, to secure a place in the everlasting afterlife where the soul would feast and flourish forever. Yet this dream of immortality came at a steep and often brutal price, one paid in sweat, pain, obedience, and sometimes the very essence of life itself. To survive a day in this ancient land is to be caught in the relentless pursuit of eternity, a pursuit that shapes every moment and demands every sacrifice. The monuments that pierce the desert sky, the pyramids, temples, and tombs stand as silent witnesses to this quest. They are not mere buildings, but grand statements of faith and power, constructed through the labor of thousands who toiled under the scorching sun, their bodies and spirits worn thin. Every stone laid, every carving etched into the walls, is a testament to the belief that through such deeds, the soul might endure beyond death. Yet for those who built them, these eternal projects were often a sentence to hardship, pain, and premature death. The ritual preparations for the afterlife dominate existence. The dead must be embalmed, their bodies preserved through painstaking mummification. process wrapped in sacred rites designed to protect the soul's journey. Priests chant incantations, anoint the body with oils and resins, and wrap it meticulously in linen bandages. The tomb is stocked with food, treasures, and amulet sol, intended to sustain the deceased in the beyond. For the living, this is a constant reminder of mortality and the need to secure one's legacy. To fund these rituals and constructions, taxes are high and labor demands relentless. The peasantry and laborers bear the brunt, working fields, quarries, and workshops to supply the wealth and materials. Families are separated, young men conscripted, and resources diverted from daily needs to eternal projects. The gap between the living and the dead is bridged by sacrifice, the price of eternity. But even the wealthiest are not guaranteed peace. Tombs are targets for thieves, whose greed defiles sacred spaces and threatens the eternal rest of the departed. The fear of curses and divine retribution hangs heavy, adding another layer of anxiety. The desire for immortality breeds both grandeur and paranoia, shaping society's values and fears. In daily life, this obsession colors behavior. People live cautiously, mindful of their reputation, deeds, and piety. Acts of charity, proper burial rites, and devotion to the gods are not just moral duties, but investments in one's eternal fate. The promise of life after death offers hope, but also enforces conformity, obedience, and a ceaseless striving toward an ideal that often feels out of reach. As night falls, and the stars wheel overhead in their endless procession, you lie down weary, your body aching from the day's toils. The desert wind whispers through the palm trees, carrying voices of ancestors and gods alike. You close your eyes, aware that to survive another day is a blessing, but that the true journey beyond life and into eternity is the ultimate challenge. In ancient Egypt, survival is not merely about the present moment. It is about the legacy you leave, the place you secure in the cosmic order, and the price you pay to be remembered forever. The price of eternity is high, woven into every stone, every ritual, and every breath taken under the relentless Egyptian sun. So now, weary traveler, as the ancient stars wheel above the timeless sands, remember the price paid and the struggles endured by those who walked this land long before us. Their world was harsh, their days filled with toil, yet their spirit endured across millennia. Rest now, and let these stories of old carry you gently into your own peaceful night. Good night, traveler.